In what ways does your media product use, develop or challenge forms and conventions of real media products? The front cover of my music magazine loosely conforms to the conventions of other magazines in the same genre, as it features conventional elements that you would expect to see, such as a masthead, cover lines and text anchored to a main image. After analysing 3 magazine front covers, Q, NME and Notion, I found that a common convention is to anchor the masthead in the top left-hand corner. I also decided to follow this convention. I've placed my masthead in a box which is anchored to the edge of the page. Placing the masthead in a box attracts attention to the more delicate serif font I have chosen. I veered away from the conventional colours usually used on mastheads on magazines of the same genre, as they tend to stick to using the main colours of bright red with black and white. I challenged this as I used a white text inside a grey box. I decided to challenge the colour conventions as I wanted my magazine to stand out from the rest of the magazines of the same genre. I also believe that grey is a more sophisticated colour and isn't so violent and in your face, which may appeal to the more fashion-conscious target audience. Another convention I've followed is anchoring my cover lines to the left. This is most likely done as we read from left to right, so it seems logical. The magazines that I analysed anchor the majority of their cover lines to the left-hand side of the page. The main image also affects where the cover lines are placed. The cover of NME that I analysed had the artist's head spanning across the last 2/3 of the page, meaning that the text would have to fit mostly into the first third. This is the same for my magazine, as the artist is also taking up the last 2/3 of the page. Although I have followed the convention of the position of my cover lines, I have challenged a convention as I only have one set of cover lines. Most magazines, although the majority will be anchored to the left-hand side, will have sets of cover lines surrounding the image. I was aiming to create a more minimalist look and decided that one set of cover lines would look appropriate. Notion magazine also only used one set of cover lines. Pull quotes are sometimes used on the front cover of a magazine to replace the main cover line. I have followed this convention. I decided to use a pull quote instead of a normal cover line as it creates an enigma. Hearing what the artist has to say but not knowing in what context they are talking about will make them want to read on to find out why they said that. My pull quote reads, "I kicked him in the balls and carried on." This also forms an image of the artist as a whole, as it is a bold statement to make. The pull quote would suggest to the audience that the artist is a loud, outspoken person. However, I have developed this convention as I have not included any explanation underneath the pull quote to obviously suggest who said the pull quote. It has been anchored to the main image to subtly tell the audience that it was her. A convention of magazines is to anchor the main cover line to the image. However, there is usually added text underneath the cover line to make it more obvious to the audience. I've included a selling line on the front cover of my magazine, but have incorporated it into a kicker. Magazines often use selling lines such as on the front cover of NME that I analyse, which reads Albums of 2013 Special. However, I developed this convention to focus more on other methods of distributing the magazine. My kicker reads, "Download the Fusion app from the Apple Store and read on the go. Visit fusion.com for extra content." Instead of promoting the paper copy of the magazine, I have focused on selling the digital copies. This breaks away from convention as other magazines try to sell the paper copy as much as possible. I have developed some of the conventions of other magazines for the front cover of Fusion. For example, I have linked the barcode and the price of the magazine together, making the price smaller. I have done this as I believe that readers will not be interested in the price as they are willing to spend more on it, like they would with the clothes they wear and the music they listen to. Therefore, the price can appear to be smaller on the page. A convention of a magazine contents page is to caption the images used. I followed this convention. After looking at the 3 magazines I analysed and others for inspiration, I found that in order to make it easier for the audience, the images used on the contents page were captioned in some way and also included a page number. This links to the navigation of the magazine as the page numbers make it easier for the reader to find what they are looking for. Magazines such as NME have captioned their images with interesting pull quotes. This creates an enigma, as the reader will want to find out in what context the artist is saying the sentence in. I've also followed this convention of captioning the images with pull quotes, as I believe it makes it more interesting for the reader. A development I have made is that I have not anchored all my text from the left-hand side, which is a convention of magazines. This convention is followed by many magazines because we read from left to right. However, to attract more attention to the artists featured on the front cover, I have centralised their names in the cover column. Using a mixture of anchorage, I believe, makes the text easier to read as it is split up. This is positive for the audience as they will feel more comfortable reading it. This is unlike the contents page of Notion magazine, which is difficult to read. A development I have made when creating my double-page spread is the size of my drop caps. After looking at 3 magazines fitting in the same genre of indie pop, I found that they all use drop caps letters at the beginning of the article. However, they are all roughly the same size, between 48 and 72 point. My drop caps, however, is as tall as the 3 columns of main body text and spans across 2 of them. I believe that it attracted attention to the article, meaning not all the focus was on the main image. This also connotes that the article is written by a journalist who is of a high standard, therefore should not come second best to the photography. This links to another development I have made to an existing convention of magazines. A byline is usually anchored to the main image to tell the audience who took the photographs and who wrote the article. I took this convention but instead made it bigger and anchored it underneath a page title. Again, this connotes that the team who contributed the different elements of this double-page spread are of a high standard and should be notified. After analysing Notion, I found that they do this, suggesting that they are very proud of the team they have. I believe Notion magazine may be the only publication who do this because they are individual and not part of a company such as Bauer Media, therefore value their team more.